Okay, we have a case submitted today for an implant in site number 12, along with the implant in site number, we'll call it 19 and 21. I believe one of the lower premolars was extracted. So this is a great example, and these are the plans as they were sent. The only thing I've done here is I went ahead and duplicated the plan. Again, remember, plan, duplicate pan, and I've renamed it T-bone compared to the original plan. So that way we can compare the original to the finals or the revised plan. So this is a great plan. I think it's a great, it's a great example of the concept we taught this weekend at our implementation program. So let's take a look and let's go through our checklist. So if we were to take a look at this plan as it is right here, I certainly would say that we would all have a tendency to say this is a very good plan. Mesiodistally, it's separated. Maybe it's a little close to this root and needs to go over a hair, but generally speaking, it's pretty good. And bone-wise, this implant is well in the bone. Now, what we don't have an idea of here is how it is restoratively. So the only way to really know that is to look at the axial view and or bring the CEREC data in. What I would like to do here is to give you an idea of this implant was planned and placed based on the bone without the previous knowledge that we covered this weekend. So what I would like to do is bring in the CEREC data here, and let's take a look at the CEREC data. So now this plan was done. Now we brought in our CEREC data and take a look at where our implant is facing. It is actually coming out facial to the buccal cusp. Now, will this work? Of course, a custom abutment can fix it. Many things can fix that. But the big difference here is that now we can't go screw retain. Now we're going to have an off-axis loading and D3, D4 bone, which isn't as strong bone as we would like. So there are a lot of negatives here. So what I would like to do is back up and let's plan this with our checklist without benefit of the CEREC data. And then let's put the CEREC data in and see. So we all agree that this implant looks very well planned, but it is not very well planned based on the final restorative outcome. So if we remember correctly, on a mesiodistal aspect, we look at the bone mesiodistally, and what we're seeing is that we're separated from this root, we're separated from this root, but if we wanted to be more ideally centered, we'd probably scoot the implant over just a hair. Now, one of the benefits that's going to give us also is avoiding the sinus just a little bit more. If we look at it from a buccolingual perspective, we're perfect. The implant is exactly in the middle of the bone. Now the next thing is our bone level, and again a rounded bone. Maybe we could drop that to right there, but if you compare that to that, it's not that big of a deal. I would say bone-wise, this is fantastic from a bone level perspective. Vital structures, we do have to worry about the sinus here. Based on these images, we look to be avoiding the sinus. Now, remember what I always say. Number one, we work in the implant line view. Number two, we always, the second thing we do after we get to the implant line tab is we go ahead to the axial here and bring this down to the occlusal third. Now, when we look at it here, what we can see is, let me bring up my drawing tools here. And what we can see is, here is the lingual aspects of the teeth. Here is the buccal aspects of the teeth. Here is the mesial of number 14, and here is the distal of number 11. If we were to draw a line in the middle, we would probably say that this implant needs to come out right there, and we are to the buccal. Okay, so what we need to do in essence is we need to take this to the lingual. So what are our options to do that? Well, we can bodily move the implant back till we get in the middle, but then we have this issue. So the more logical option here is to tilt. Now we can tilt that forward to get in the right spot, but then we've left this very thin. We could again tilt just the platform of the implant over, but again then we've left this thin. So our option in this case is a combination. Let's move a little bit from the platform and a little bit from the apex. And now there we go. So now we're centered in the occlusal plane of the tooth here. Just cheat a little bit more there. Great. Now the next thing we were taught to look at was our occlusal plane. Now we've looked at our occlusal table, it looks very good, and now our occlusal plane. Now, why aren't we seeing more teeth here or seeing this a little bit better? Remember, this orange line right here represents where we need to see on the occlusal plane. So take your slider and move it just like so. So now we see a little bit more of those teeth. Now, what am I seeing here? What I'm seeing is that our occlusal plane is like so. And we do not want that. What we want our occlusal plane to be is that. So this implant is malpositioned to not allow us to do that. So what are our options to fix that? That is going to be a tilt function. So we're going to tilt this implant to the distal to the mesial on the apical end of the implant, and now we're going to move that until we get that a little bit more level. Now we've gotten that level, but now the issue we're dealing with is, again, now we're to the distal here. So we're going to move this over a hair, and what we may find is that we can't get it absolutely perfectly level, so we're going to have to accept a little bit of a compromise like so. And this is not horrible of a compromise at all, but it is definitely better than where we started, okay? So now, if we bring in our CEREC data here, let's go over here to CAD/CAM, and now let's take a look at this. And we can still see that we're certainly better than where we started, but we're not quite where we need to be. So, and really the major issue is that we're centered very well mesiodistally, but buccolingually we need to be a little bit more like so. So there we go. There's our more ideal plan. And we can take a look. So what I would like to do is show you this tooth from the original plan, plan 1. Let's take a look at tooth number 12, just like so. And as we can see here, as we're coming out of the buccal cusp, like so. And now let's take a look at this with our new plan for tooth number 12, and we can see here now we're coming out of the central groove. So now I know we have plenty of bone around the implant. It's going to be supported very well. I can do this likely in a flapless or a pita pocket flap just to preserve keratinized tissue, which I don't think is necessary in this case. But a tissue punch will work. We also can see now we're farther away from the sinus, so we have nothing to worry about. In fact, I would bet that we can now go to an 11.5 millimeter implant. So now, instead of you having to use the shorter implant with the narrow diameter because of the spacing, now we're able to go to a longer length implant because of the shorter diameter. So now we're able to go to an 11.5. So the last things that we'll check are our 360 view here, moving our slider, watching our implant, making sure that we're not to the sinus right here, not too close to this adjacent root, which we're not, and there we go. So again, this is a wonderful example on tooth number 12 here of the difference between the planning that we learned that we were doing before and the planning that we learned this weekend, and how, one, making sure that even with or without CEREC data we can get this better, and what to recognize moving forward. I want to thank you for sending in this case.